All right. Rise, Grind, Repeat, Episode 6 with good friend and founder of Raising Nerd, Lee Allentuck. How are you, Lee?
Good. It's great to be here. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's been a while. We've been talking about it for a bit, and we got you here finally. And so maybe you can we can just jump right in and talk about Raising Nerd and the background behind it, and you know how you started it and the purpose it serves.
Yeah, it's how it started is not that exciting, honestly. I was sitting in another meeting in the corporate world and literally was just so bored. We had just had this meeting a year earlier and a year before that, and it was literally the same meeting every year with nothing getting decided, nothing getting done. And I was bored. I was sitting there just kind of sketching in my notebook, and I'd sketched this little robot that I've got here that literally is just sort of kind of off the top of my head. And I'd always been, fascinated with my son and my daughter and their interest in learning and doing nerdy things and trying to figure out a way to support that. And so as I'm sitting in this meeting, bored, not paying attention, I sketched this little robot, and I was like, that's pretty cool. I like it. I probably did 1,000 versions of the same drawing, and I'm sure people thought I was kind of going psycho and like plotting some nefarious type plot, but it was literally just sketching that out, and I had been wanting to have some kind of thing to do, some sort of hobby or something to kind of keep myself busy, get my name out there. And I thought, blog is kind of an interesting way to do this. And right there in that meeting, I looked up and see if I was trying all these names, and I came across something nerd, something this. Everything had to touch base with the nerd side of it.
Sure.
And then I fumbled upon Raising Nerd or Raise the Nerd, How to Raise a Nerd. And Raising Nerd was available on the website, and ended up just kind of like, right there and then buying it and started figuring out from there what to do with it. It's become this sort of this platform for me to, talk to interesting people that are out there doing really cool things in the world of technology and science and space and robotics and things like that. And it's now, in its third year, and we've got, thousands of followers, and we're hoping to take it to the next step. So the goal of it, kind of take a step back, is really about, I had always watched my kids and their nerd, ventures, whether it was in science or technology, coding and things like that. People had always come up to me and said, how can I get my kids into coding? How do I get my kids into robotics? Or what do what's your advice? Sure. And I'm not a good advice person. I kind of say, well, this is what we do, or look and find things that are opportunities. And so I thought this would be a good platform to help other parents that have that same interest for their kids and want to live vicariously through them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it's become. Almost like a roadmap or an opportunity finder for other parents and other kids that want to find their way to nerdom, and that want to somehow do something big and save the world or make an impact on the world in a positive way down the line.
Yeah, and I think it's so fantastic, and it's funny following you just on social media, aside from Raising Nerd, but just you specifically, and watching, you follow your kids, growth and stuff, and just that, you call, your son is NerdBoy, and
NerdBoy
and GirlTastic, and I just think like it's just phenomenal the way you capture that and share that information, and it's just it resonates exactly what you're talking about as far as sharing what you do to help other people figure that out. I know my oldest, we got him into the robotics, into the Lego Robotics League, early on, and it was just great to see the kids collaborate on projects and figure things out and nurture that and encourage that,
Yeah.
So and that was prior to me, hooking up with you and meeting you, and so to see that is just fantastic, to give that kind of forum for other people to at least reach out, ask questions, learn more.
Yeah,
it's really fascinating.
Well, it's funny because I think if you took 90% of all Facebook posts from parents are about their kids, right?
Yeah.
And they have to do with sports or other activities like dancing, and all that's fantastic. We're big into sports. I grew up on sports. I have nothing against sports, but I also know that even I did. We took it so seriously. Like, oh my gosh, my kid scored a goal. This is it, man. Let's start talking to colleges. Let's get them on the fast track. And I think it's, less than 5% of youth athletes go on to actually play in college. Yep. And then beyond that, it's like 1% make it to the pros, or
I think it's less than that. I think it's like
0.001% or something crazy. And as I've been coaching robotics for 7 years, every one of those kids can go pro. Which is an amazing thing to say, is that if it's a competition, it's a way of learning, it's a way to learn about teamwork and leadership and overcoming adversity and all those things. Just like any sport, right? You're sweating, you are working out, you're lifting, you're hauling, you're solving problems. You have a better chance of getting into college with a robotics as your sport than you do any other sport. Sure. And you have the opportunity to go pro and do that as a career, which is, I think, amazing, an opportunity that we didn't have growing up.
Yeah, I know for myself, having 3 kids too, I thought in playing sports growing up, I, always envisioned, my kids are going to play sports, I'm going to get them involved. Yeah. And we have, and what I noticed with my older son is, it took him a while to figure out which sport he liked or gravitated to. But even that, it's more recreation. He's not, all in.
As it should be, yeah.
Exactly. And but that's not what I was used to. So I'm like, are you, if you want to get better, you got to go out there and practice and work hard, and which you do, but you got to be into it too. And I think it's nice to take a step back and not be so aggressive to not force them, but to try and pigeonhole them into one particular sport or activity, and kind of just see how it plays out, see what they like to do. And
I think it teaches us a healthy lifestyle too, right, and sportsmanship and all that great stuff. And my kids play just as many sports as they do in other things, in robotics and things like that. My son, he does running for cross country. He swims on the swim team, and he does Taekwondo. Yeah, so he's on the U.S. World Championship of Taekwondo.
That's awesome.
But I know that's not what he's going to do professionally. I know that maybe he'll do that in college because it's such a niche sport, and hopefully he continues it for the rest of his life and teaching and going. He's a 2nd degree black belt. He'll be a 3rd degree black belt after the summer, hopefully.
What's it feel like that your son can beat you up?
So here's
such a
the
young
funny.
age.
No, it's totally like when he was younger, it was like kind of cute, like here, punch the bag. And now it's like he goes, Dad, can you work out with me? And I'm like, oh my God, it's so painful. Like he kicks these bags. I got these, we bought professional, boxing and training pads for him because he takes it so seriously. But when he first started, he was, I think, 5 or 6 years old, and he was like barely up to my waist, and now he's almost 6 feet tall, and he can whoop my ass, but he does these back kicks, and I hold the pads, man, I feel him right through the pads. Nice. It's painful. So, but here, the funny part about it is I actually, I started up Taekwondo a few years ago because I wish I had started with him. Like, I don't know why I didn't, but I've gone to so many Taekwondo practices and tournaments. I should be like a 4th degree by now, but
just by osmosis.
Exactly. And so I started up, and my goal before I reach 50 is to get my black belt. And I think I am the slowest and probably the worst Taekwondo athlete to ever go for their black belt. Like, I'm taking the beyond slow road.
Persistence, just.
I don't. It's not persistent. It's more like slugging along and running in mud or something. But to go back to what we were saying is that my daughter plays soccer and basketball, and she's really talented. Like, I think she actually, I get caught up in it. Like, maybe she could play in college, like a Division III or something like that. And I'm like, I'm just like going against what I preach, and in the sense of, if she does, that's fantastic, and I hope she continues to love those sports. But I do know that it's going to be her love for other things like acting or science and technology and things that are really going to propel her into college versus her talents on the court or on the pitch.
Yep. And that should help even career-wise, as far as, like we said, the very few make it even to college, but let alone make it a career, so it's a good foundation to have skills in all these different things.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this is where Raising Nerd, I think, is really sort of driven that point home. It's about creative problem solving. It's not about teaching people, the basic physics formulas for gravity or all these other things. Because to be honest, I have no idea. I'm just a dad. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a technologist. I'm a marketer, right? Yeah. But it's about instilling curiosity, and it's instilling that idea that you can have creative problem-solving skills. You don't have to have the answers. You just have to have the urge to go and find out what the answers might be. Yep. And that's really what being a nerd is all about. It's that passion for learning, that passion for curiosity. And I think in sports, you're somewhat limited about getting that curiosity or getting that problem solving. It's more of physically, how are you training your body, memory skill, muscle memory and things like that, which again, all important, very, very important stuff to teach a positive, healthy lifestyle. But when it comes to, and I'll go back to where I'm comfortable with, is coaching robotics. When you have a robot that's 120 pounds, or let's say it's 125 pounds and the limit's 120 pounds, you got to learn how to lose 5 pounds within the next half hour in order to compete in a tournament. Well, there's no lesson there. There's no one way to do that. So, you start thinking about, all right, we can't take the battery out. We can't take these bars out because they're holding the robot up. What do we do? Kids said, let's take a drill and just drill as many holes as we can in the base of the robot. And lo and behold, you have a Swiss cheese robot that's still very sturdy, and you lost 5 pounds, right? So the lesson there is really about how do you solve those problems in creative, different ways. That's the lesson you can take throughout your whole life, right? It's about trying to figure out. You don't know what life is going to throw you. You don't know what's going to be in your way. But if you don't have those basic ideas or basic confidence to go and solve problems on your own and be creative about it, man, life is going to be tough. I mean, you guys know, we all deal with it every day.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that brought us together too, during while we were working together was, the concept of, what's your plan A, right? And that kind of took me back, because I'm like, plan A, usually it's like you're thinking about plan B if things don't work out with your job or whatnot. And it was just a different way to approach, life in general too. Is like, okay, yeah, I think we get comfortable in particularly like a job that you may or may not like, and we forget about what maybe our purpose is or what we've what we want to pursue, and instead we settle, and instead we should have that curious nature as we did as a kid, and some and follow our passion and follow what our original probably plan A was, and what we're doing now would be a plan B, or for those working and may not be satisfied with what they're doing, but it definitely gave me a different perspective on what I was going through, with the potential layoffs coming up and my dad and the whole thing. But it was like it made me rethink that, and coming across like Joe Rogan's podcast, where he even admits to himself, obviously he's ultra successful, but he has 3 different careers, that's going on at the same time. He's got the podcast, he's got the comedy thing going, and the UFC announcer, so, and he even admits, if I only had one of those things, I would lose my mind, because, I don't know that I'd want to just do one thing, and then it would become more of quote unquote work versus, enjoying it. So, I think that's what I'm trying to do too here with this is have a separate, thing, that I can cultivate and use creativity and provide a service to others. And I think that's what you're doing too with Raising Nerd. You're curating information. You're saying I'm not a scientist, I'm not this, I'm not that, but you're providing such a great service by curating all this information and getting articles and interviewing different people, scientists, NASA. It's fantastic.
Oh, thanks, man. No, it's honestly, it's. I totally agree with what you're saying, and it's funny. I agree with what you're saying and agreeing with me. So it's very self-serving in general. But no, I think the days of going to work and grinding it out in the same job for 40 years and then coming home and retiring is gone, and thank God it's gone, man. Like I left college and I was like, I'm gonna get a job, I'm gonna stay with the same company forever, and I think that's what my parents intended as well. And then 6 years in, where I was having a great experience, but I had like plateaued out, man. I was like, I was in public relations and publicity. And I was working with some fascinating clients. Like I was working with boxing promoters. I was working with, 4 or 5 star restaurants. I was doing big, huge PGA and NFL events. And it was just a small little agency in DC. But I noticed when I started like just changing the dates of the release, the news releases to the next year, it was like, okay, I've kind of done here. Because like I was just taking the same information, changing the date and putting it back out there. And it was literally the same thing without a challenge. And I think my parents were like completely shocked when I was like, oh, I'm gonna leave a cushy job to go to a new job. And then when I left the corporate world about a year and a half ago, my mom was like, oh my God, you're leaving the safety of the corporate world and all the things that come with it. I was like, Mom, they just laid off 1,400 people.
Yeah.
Like there's no safety there.
Yeah.
I can always, that's my fallback. Doing, consulting and starting my own stuff and doing my own thing, that's kind of where the excitement is. And actually, it's actually more profitable, and it's you get your own schedule and you get to do. So like you're saying, I always worry sometimes in the morning, like, all right, what do I got to get done? And am I making money? Am I making money today? Am I doing what I need to do to make money? And at the same time, I'm like, I'm doing things that I want to do. The money is coming in, so I'm cool. I'm getting my work done, but I'm also doing all these other things that are keeping me busy. And I think you're absolutely right. You've got to stay creative. You got to do stuff that makes you, get up in the morning and excited, because you could, if we're all going to be 65, 70 years old one day, and we're going to have nothing to show for it other than we helped someone's stock go up $1 or $2.
Right.
Like that's
the whole model of working till you retire and then you retire and live is not.
It's crazy.
Rather than doing something that's fulfilling, kind of purpose driven.
Yeah.
I don't think I've done the same thing the same consecutive year. I've either changed careers or had a job that continually evolved, or had multiple jobs too, because it's about the passion of living a fulfilling life.
Yeah.
And that's what Raising Nerd kind of seems to be encouraging parents to do, and for kids as well. And the whole creativity aspect of it is awesome. It's like STEAM or STEM, because everything's about creative problem solving, and you need creativity to make your robot 5 minutes lighter.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it comes down to is just, I know what my kids are into. I know what I'm excited about. I know what we get excited about, and I try to fuel that passion that they have, right? And we live vicariously through our kids, right? Yeah. I'd love to say I'm a scientist. I'm going to discover the next, new energy or a way to fix the climate and all that. I'm not that guy. Yeah. But my kids could be, and they are into that. So if I can fuel that passion and get them excited about it, my advice to parents, and I'm very careful about giving advice because I'm no expert, but it's just find out what they love and kind of lean into that and give them those experiences. And if you don't know what it is, or they don't know what it is, keep trying new things. It's okay to say oh, we tried guitar. They're not into it. Yep. They don't want to practice it. You'll know when they like it. Yep. They'll dive in.
And I think that's where we as parents sometimes, make mistakes, where we try and we'll keep going, keep pursuing. And it's I don't like guitar. Yeah, keep, they're coming, we'll keep, getting you lessons. And we can learn, what I've noticed recently is we can learn a lot from our own kids, because we get away from our childlike behavior in a good way. In a good childlike behavior where we're curious and we want to learn and we want to explore, but then we all of a sudden we're in this workforce and things are different, and we project what we feel they should, because we didn't necessarily aren't in our purpose, living our purpose, we project, hey, don't do it this way because this is not the right way. And somehow we know the right way when we don't know the right way because we're still learning too. And the more I get involved in what they're doing as a almost like a bystander, like just being involved. Like my boys are into wrestling and whatever. And it's like I encourage that. I used to watch it when I was a kid. Now I'm back in it. I'm invested, and it's a cool family kind of bonding thing. And even with their activities, it's like we're involved as much as we need to be encouraging.
Completely.
And
well, and you can with the best part about
fostering,
that is the best part about that story there is you're into wrestling, but you bring so much to the table for your kids, right? You remember the classic WWF, not WWE.
Hey, WWF,
Hulk and Rowdy and all that, and you can talk about those great things. That's a great way for you guys to kind of connect, right? Will they have a career in wrestling? Who knows? Probably doubtful, but it's a way for you to connect. And I think that's all really parenthood should be, is like, how do you connect with your kids in a way that you both are mutually enjoying it? I think that's a
and it keeps us part. It keeps us young, as well.
Totally.
Instead of fighting against it or whatnot, it keeps us youthful, which I think is also beneficial.
We're somewhat cool in their eyes.
Cool, still.
I never was. I've never been accused of being cool, so if I can be cool in someone's eyes these days, that's really nice.
That's it. Same here. Going back to what you were saying too, about your mom saying, "Oh, you left this comfortable, job or whatever."
Yeah, it wasn't just my mom, my wife, like everybody was nervous, and I get it. It was more. I had made, so go back to the Plan A discussion, because I don't know if your audience knows what Plan A is. Maybe we can kind of delve into that a little bit. You had a question, but I don't know if you
I was just going to relate it to, I'll let you talk about Plan A, but okay. I'll say, Jim Carrey always talks about how his dad, could have been a great comedian, even funnier than him, but he played it safe and he got this accounting job and that was playing it safe, and it was safe until he got let go and fired from that job. So it's like here he didn't pursue his dream to play it safe, and at the end of the day he got laid off anyway. So it's one of those stories where it's like, hey, go pursue your dreams because
fail at what you don't
want.
Exactly. And Jim Cook from Sam Adams is another good example where he was working for an investment firm making a crap load of money. I mean, and he was young. He was in his 20s, and he came home. I think his dad was a 5th generation beer meister. Came home to his dad and said, "You know what I'm going to do? We're going to start a beer company." And his dad said, "You've come up with some really stupid ideas in your life, and that is probably the worst one."
Yeah.
And someone asked him, was like, "What, weren't you taking a risk leaving this cushy job, making all this money to go and start a beer company?" Which back then wasn't a thing, right? Nobody did that. And he said, "No, the bigger risk was waiting till I'm 50 years old and saying, God, I wish I had done that." Right? And I'm pushing 50 and I probably could have done this earlier, but it was a year and a half ago that the opportunity to go out on my own and do my own thing, which I'm still trying to figure out what that is, was like too good to pass up. And my fallback is going back to corporate. I always say, all right, I tried it, didn't work. Let's go back and find a job in an insurance company or something exciting like that. But I'm not ready to do that. So, but let's go back to the Plan A, Plan B discussion, because I think that's kind of what we're getting into now. So one of your past guests, Mike Cass, good friend of mine, he and I were sitting in a bar one night, and this is actually part 2 of the story. So part 1 is I was sitting in a bar. I do that a lot, apparently, with a friend of mine, Jay, who we worked at Hasbro, a big toy company, and we were working for the games group out in East Longmeadow, Massachusetts, and there was rumors that they were going to shut down the place and move everybody to Rhode Island where their corporate headquarters are. And we knew it was going to happen. It was inevitable. It was like, this is happening. And the two of us sat there at the bar and we're like, God, we're smart guys, right? Man, we manage millions of dollars worth of business. What is our plan B? Like, what are we going to do? We got to come up with something before they come and pull the trigger on this. And then nothing ever happened, right? We sat there, like, sure enough, they pull the trigger. Both of us are out on our asses, and we don't have a job, you know. And Jay, super smart guy, super, like, just very strategic and hardworking, lands a great job up in Vermont, and he picks up his family and moves and does real well up there. I'm here and I'm like, all right, what are my options? And I land, you know, at our old place of work, and I was very lucky to just move a mile down the road. I got to stay in the same house and same town. It was great. There was a great honeymoon period there, and loved, you know, the work we were doing, or we thought we were doing, and getting excited about kind of working with this brand. And then Mike Cass and I are sitting in a bar, and we're kind of getting frustrated with the same old stuff. It's like bureaucracy, and you know, you've got people that just don't want to collaborate, and egos and silos and things like that. And really, how much of an impact are you making on the grander brand and business and things like that? And so we're sitting at the bar, and it's actually, ironically, I think it was the exact same bar. Might have been even the same bar stools, right? And we sat there like, what's our plan B, man? We're smart guys. Let's come up with something. Let's do our own thing, whatever it is. And it was at that point we sort of said, God, you know what? We've been trying to figure out what our plan B is, right? And what are we going to fall back on? And I think that was the problem. We were sitting there trying to figure out what we're going to fall back on when we were actually living our plan B. This is what we were doing at that time, working in an office, working for other people, helping other people get rich. That was not what our intentions were when we left college or when we went out in the world, right? We wanted to go and make something of ourselves. And instead, we got caught in the trap that everybody seems to get caught up in, of working for the man, or you know, getting into a corporate job. And you may like it, you might like what you do, but you know, how fulfilling will it be in the long term if you have bigger aspirations? And so it was that point that we decided that our plan A is what we needed to work on. What are we building towards? And using that job, that connection, that opportunity that they've been giving us, which is honestly a great opportunity. Working for a big company like that, it's not that I'm slamming the company or anything like that. It was more the trap you get into.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And taking advantage of that opportunity and using those resources and the name brand recognition and the position you're in to open up doors to drive your plan A, whatever that might be. And for me, I'm not even sure what it is quite yet. I knew I wanted to be on my own. I knew that I had a network of people in the industry and around the world that I could lean on and talk to. And it was about, all right, if I'm going to go out on my own and do my own thing, I need to plot it out and start getting back out into the world and talking to people. And when I don't need it, right? Talk to people. It's like dating, right? If you always seem like you the most opportunities for
it's when you're with someone,
with
right?
Somebody, like you're married or you're dating. That's when people seem to find you attractive because you're safe and you're non-threatening and all that, and maybe better looking. I don't know. But when you go out and you're out on your own, and you are single or whatever, you scare people off at times, right? And so I really worked hard at kind of building up my network and putting in position the opportunity that I wanted to do when I went out on my own. So when I did finally pull the trigger, it wasn't me going out and trying to find work. It was more people coming to me, how can I help you?
Yeah.
And that's really what Plan A is about, is planning it out and getting it ready so that when you're ready to pull the trigger, or if the trigger's pulled on you,
right,
that you're ready, and those opportunities are right there.
I think that's a great point too, and I think you know, I was talking to Tim about this a little bit too, is we get stuck in these systems, like, you know, in our life, there's different systems everywhere, and work happens to be, or corporate life happens to be one of them, and it's how you, what I've kind of learned through the whole process is kind of how you approach it, and you know, where it's a mutual, you know, agreement amongst you and the company, and you know, whatever you take out of it is what you're gonna get. But if you rely too much on the system itself, you could, end up, if that's your only thing and the system's done with you, then it's, but if while you're there, like you're saying, if you can reach out to different people and build up your community and your tribe, and meanwhile, it was working on athletes for me is where I was working on that video to kind of, where I got back into my purpose, as I'm working, I'm like, hey, I remember this is what I used to do. This was what I used to love to do. And even though I'm still at the company, now I have this other thing that I'm passionate about that I can use and leverage my creativity towards. And I think to your point, it's like that is my plan A. That was my purpose leaving college, and what I grew up doing and was passionate about was making videos and stuff like that. So now, again, just like you, I don't know what this podcast and any of this is going to become, but right now I'm trying to curate information and share that, so hopefully I can help whoever else is kind of struggling, and does it materialize to something? I don't know, but I'm going to have fun doing it and still have fun where I'm at too.
I mean, look what it's done for you. I mean, you're in incredible shape. Like the life-changing moments you've had are just mind-boggling to me.
I appreciate that.
And I was thinking on the way over here, I was like, RiZe, okay, I get up in the morning, grind. I'm not sure I'm doing that too much, but I'm repeating a lot. So it's, my grind is different. And I think that may be the sort of precursor for something like this, is that you don't have to do exactly what Joe's doing, right? You don't have to be in great shape and keep working out. It might be good for you. It might help you get to a place where you want to be. But my grind is different. My grind is like I'm working on 4 or 5 different brands at a time. I'm talking to clients, or I'm talking to people that I want to interview, or I'm creating websites, things that, whatever it is, your grind is different from others. And I think that's the beauty of this, is that I don't have to live your life. You don't have to live mine or yours, Tim. It's like whatever it is you want to do, be passionate about it and put it first.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the corporate grind gets beat up or beats you down, right? Like you were saying, you get caught in the system of like, all right, I'm going to go in early because I got more emails to do, or I got more meetings that are filling my like. If you could take out the meetings of your in the corporate world, just those alone, man, you compress your day to like a couple hours of work and you're done. Like it's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
But again, and that's what it is. If you can make it your own, it's like you don't have to follow just because you get invited. And that's one of the things me and Tim were talking about too. Just because you get invited to a meeting, if there's 30 people on it, you don't need to attend the meeting. Get the notes after. I mean, it depends what it is. If you're required so that you can add value to that meeting, for sure. But if it's something that you can get the notes after and digest in 10 or 15 minutes,
the week before, though, it's not even like nothing's moved. And it's like basically people just repeating each other and piling on, And I'm sure I'm doing that in this podcast too. I haven't been in a meeting in a long time, but it's like that idea of like, you say something, and then the person next to you kind of repeats what you're saying, even though they're agreeing. Why don't they just say, that's it. Like you can kill the meeting right there. Just say, I agree. Moving on.
Yeah.
They don't do that, though.
No.
And a corporate life can help you invest in your plan A. That's fine. But when you start investing like that meeting is your value, then it's like, that's when you unless it's your company. You own the company. You're working for someone else. If it enables you to continue or pursue whatever your plan A may be, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And your plan A might be to climb that wherever you are. And that's fine too. And that means attending those every meeting or whatever, and learning the next skill that it's going to take to get that next position within the company.
I don't think that's not how the corporate world works. And again, I don't want to. I might start slamming the corporate world at this point, but how sad is it that your importance is based on what meetings you get invited to? Like, seriously. And I was there. I was like, I'm in a meeting with the CEO or somebody important, and that doesn't add to your value. That maybe adds to their ego, but that's about it. So it's really, again, I don't know many people that say, God, I hope I can work in a cubicle and clock, 6 to 8 in the afternoon or whatever, 6 to 8 at night. Like, that's my dream. Like, I think we just get caught up in that cycle. What do you like? So I would ask the question this, like, to kind of get to the nuts and bolts of that is, when you do retire, right? And at some point, work ends.
I'm not going to retire.
Never going to retire. Well, at some point,
no,
you're
but
gonna leave the
I'll
corporate
give you
world,
no, but
right?
I'll give you my go ahead.
Yeah, so
go
you're
ahead.
going to leave the corporate world, and I've asked myself this a lot. Like, especially I'm middle age, right? And I've taken on the last year and a half of trying to find hobbies and things that get me excited and keep my brain going and all that. Modern Family just did an episode on it. It was hilarious, and I felt like they were like spying on me. But anyways, when you're done working, whether it's at Lego or wherever else in the corporate world, what are you going to do then? Like, what is going to fill your day?
Yep.
And that's like a brutal question.
That's plan A. And that's why plan A needs to be in place, because, my take is I'm going to stay there as long as I can, or they want me, or, you know what I mean? So but the concept of retirement, I've just over the last 3 months have been like contemplating, and I've watched it,
And those of you listening, we're way too young to retire. It's not like it's happening, but it's like, but I get what you're saying.
Well, I think the whole point of the retirement is part of the system.
Yeah.
And again, when we rely on the system, whether it's government, a company, or whatever, depending on how deep you want to invest yourself into the system, is when you can get stuck, right? So, if the government's handing out money and you take advantage of it versus what the purpose for it is just, if you're struggling, it's to get you out of that struggle so then you can go live your purpose, and I think, I look at some of the long-term people that had been there for 20-something years that got laid off, and they were very, understandably like resentful and like, oh, I put my life into it, blah, 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 blah. Nobody asked you to. And it sounds cold, but it's, now that I'm reflecting and looking back, it's like
they don't owe you a thing. They don't owe,
right. It was a mutual agreement. You chose to do a particular job for compensation, and the company itself provides all these other bells and whistles and services to help you, and that's a good thing. But if you rely on it and go all in just like the government, you could get stuck. So it's use even with like social media, everything, use the tools to the best of that you need them, that are going to help serve you and maybe serve others, but don't get lulled into this, this system,
false pretense.
Right. So I guess I'm really not answering your question, but the hope is, like, I look at it as, I think I'm providing value to them. I think they're adding value to me, by compensating me. Also, there are some, like I said, some creative things that I've been able to do that, they haven't gone all the way where I had hoped them to go, but it's opened up my mind to help in other avenues of life. So,
well, I'll even go a step further on this, is that it's not even that they owe you anything. They don't. They're pretty clear about that. They can cut you off at any point. I was very lucky that, when I got cut off, they set me up. They gave me a long enough runway to be able to do what I had hoped to do. So financially, I was like, I'm fine. Like, my family's taken care of. I don't have to sell my house. No one's starving, obviously. But it goes down to, I think a more challenging issue I have in that aspect is, they, not just the company we were at, but companies in general, make it feel like you need to be here, right? There's nothing out there for you. And I think that's where people that's really, I think, the toxic piece of this whole thing. Not that they owe you anything, because they don't, but that they make you feel like you're nothing without them. You need that identity. You need that role, that title, right? You need that organization, that bureaucracy, those meetings, because when you go outside these walls, there's nothing out there. And that's the scariest thing, I think, for people. And anytime somebody gets laid off or they leave a company or whatever, my first thing to tell them is like, dude, there's life out here. Yeah. There's a big life out here. There's so much opportunities to do whatever it is you want. You just need to figure out what it is. Yep. And there's people that want to help you. And I think where corporations really, I think, fall down, and maybe it's in their best interest to make you feel like you're trapped, make you feel like you can't get out because there's nothing out there for you.
now do you think? But now do you?
It's like
think,
an M. Night Shyamalan movie, right? It's like,
now,
you all along.
But now, do you think that they think that, or is it
complicit?
Right? Do we think that, you know what I mean? Is it
both.
our own? Because again, we think life. Oh, this is great. Sometimes we have it perfect or whatever. And then you get laid. Either you get laid off or you find something different, and it's oftentimes it's better.
Yeah.
So it's just the fear. It's our own insecurity of not really.
Yes and no. I think we get fed that. So if you go look at HR recruiting sites, does it ever say "we be lucky to have you"? Does it ever say "we want you"? It always says, we have a great opportunity here for you. We are a great company. We are like it's they sell you this, they spoon feed you this idea that you're lucky to be here. Yeah. You're lucky to be a part of our family and things like that. And of course that's what they say. And I don't think it's meant like in a harmful way, but I remember going to at the company we were at, like it was a lot of times like the culture, you're so lucky to be a part of this culture. It's like, well, screw that. You're lucky to have me. Yeah. I got great ideas. I got bold visions. I work hard. Yeah. You should be lucky to have people like us. Yeah. And I think that's where you've got to start thinking about you're more important than people lead on, I think. And I think that's really where the toxicity, the toxic environment comes, is when people don't believe that they are more important than the whole sometimes. Mm-hmm. We're all there for a team. We're all there to be a part of a team, which is really important. But if you have a lesser opinion of yourself, that's horrible.
Well, that's right, and that's where I think that you have to walk in with a mindset that they're lucky. Yeah. They're lucky to have me, and while I'm here, I'm going to use my skills and the best that I can to help them while I'm here. And
but it goes two ways there too, and you should be able to and express that to other people. I'm lucky to have you on my team. Yes. I'm lucky to be working with you. Yep. And that never happens in the corporate world. When you go to your review, we're so lucky to have you on the team. No, it's here's where you need to fix. Yeah. You need to do better on these things. It's not like, it's, you know what I'm saying? It's like there's got to be a two-way thing. They're lucky to have me, and I'm lucky to have people like you on my team or to work with amazing people like you. And I think that gets lost a lot of times because people are too scared that they're going to lose their job, and then, there's no plan B. Yeah. There should be a plan A instead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it depends. It definitely depends where you land too. Yeah.
That's my preachy story for today.
No, for sure.
It also ties into raising nerd too, because the next generation is learning creative problem solving, learning their value and their talents and developing skills on that. So the next generation is going to be a lot more agile in their own purpose-driven lives.
Yeah, and I think where big corporations are really going to have a problem is that next generation. Yeah. The gig economy is real. I mean, I'm living proof of that. People are happy to work from home and take gigs and short-term opportunities and go with that. Yep. There's never been a better time to go and start your own company and do your own thing, as you guys are proof of that, and find what really gets you excited. And I think corporations are going to have a hard time competing with that. I think it's really going to be hard for them to say, hey, come sit in our office for 40 to 60 hours a week. Don't worry about your family. Don't worry about your life dreams and your goals. Like, come on in and push some paper.
We're going to put these fluorescent lights over.
Open environment. Everybody's going to be able to hear every word you say instead of like, I get to go sit on my deck and work with my dog all day. Like, how can you top that?
Well, I think, our company was one that's, they're moving towards the work from home because they see it. They see the writing on the wall. And what we've also seen is, a lot of the newer generations that are being employed, they're only sticking around for 2 or 3 years anyway. So they have to also kind of, deal with that, where now it's like it's the, more the millennials like looking to jump around and pad their resume with, which again, that's...
And I mean, in my opinion on the millennials is I think you're going to see, I think that's kind of their MO, or they'll I think they're actually worse than our generation, right? I think they're, and the sense of they are going to be content. they stay there. Like the ones I've met have stayed there because it's easy.
You think so? I think that they're more open to like what we're like. I think they're more apt to look and try and find their purpose than.
Well, the ones I've worked with are, but I will tell you the generation after that, and that's the ones I work with in the high schools and the middle schools and doing robotics. I will tell you, this is an impressive generation. Yeah. This group of kids that are coming up that have been handed a shitty kind of, platform, right? It's like we're killing the world. We have all these things that are going wrong, but there's still optimism at that level, right? There's still like, I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna do it. They're smarter than us, man. Yeah. These kids all get good grades. They I think I read somewhere like the ACTs, like in the SATs, there are more perfect scores in like one school than an entire county when I grew up.
Wow.
Like I remember the kid that got 1,600 on his
right.
SATs.
You always
like he was a brilliant guy, and like I still like, remember the story where his mom told my mom, oh, he got lucky, everything went well that day. Any other day he wouldn't have gotten 1,600, and then sure enough he takes it again and he got 1,600 this year. But there's more kids getting 1,600 now than there were in like any time in history, right? And there's smarter because they have more access.
That shows how old we are, because I think it's not 1,600 anymore. I think it's like 20.
No, it's still.
Is it 16?
Yeah, my son's about to take it in a couple weeks. 1,600. But it's.
Is it still? I
think it is. I don't know. Okay. Maybe that's why he scored so well. 1,600 out of 22. But I think that generation after the millennials is going to do so much. It's the Mars generation, right? That's the group that's going to colonize the moon and solve so many problems if we don't screw it up before them. That's what I get excited about. And I think that's where we go back to. The corporations are going to have to, I don't know, evolve or change, or maybe go extinct. And there's new worlds of people coming up and changing the world. And it's not a guy sitting in a lab inside a big corporation. It's some guy in his basement that said, I'm going to solve the energy crisis. And that's how it's going to happen. It's not going to be some big corporation that's going to own it. Yeah. They may destroy it, but they won't own it.
Yeah.
there's your hopeful outlook on life.
And again, not to generalize millennials either, too, because obviously there's great work being done by all generations for sure. But yeah, I mean, again, going back to Plan A, I think we're all looking to find our purpose and not leave the system, but figure a way to work within the system, and that's the world. Not just your day-to-day job. There's whether it's raising a family, whether it's living your purpose, and obviously there's just a lot of stressors in life, and I think the better we can make it, the better, the more we can serve others, and
I mean, I think it begs the question is, how do you find your plan A, right? How does somebody find what's their next thing, or what is their purpose? And I don't know if I have the answer. Like, I'm still searching at some point, right? Of like, why do I, like going out on my own as a consultant or a contractor and doing things like that and doing Raising Nerd, I'm like, what is the end game here? And I think that's the problem with my generation, is that we're always like, okay, you work till you get to retirement. That's your end game. I don't really want that in my end game, so I got to figure out what it is. But to find your plan A, it's kind of just, you got to experiment. It's like, goes back to what we were talking about kids, right? Try some things, put yourself out of your comfort zone. I'm not saying, like, I took up drums this last year, right? I've tried guitar and piano in years past, and just they always fail. And so I went out and said, all right, I've been out for probably a year at that point of work. And on my own. And I was like, all right, what do I have to show for it? And my wife's like, you're doing tons of stuff. I was like, no, I need to like take on a skill or do something, push myself and challenge myself. Because I was taking so long with Taekwondo. It's just, I wasn't pushing the limits, right? And so I said, I'm going to try drums. I've always loved drums. I've always wanted to play drums. I've always wanted to try drums. So I went and signed up at this school to take drums, like, and this is like where they like little kids go to learn instruments, and they're not like these are like really talented kids, it's like scary how talented these kids are. And so I go, it's like, look, I'm kind of embarrassed, I'm almost 50, I want to learn an instrument, I want to take drums. Can I take lessons during the middle of the day when no one's there? And they're like, no, we don't do lessons in the middle of the day because the kids are at school. And I'm like, okay, when can I do them? She's like, you can do them 4 o'clock on Thursdays. I'm like, crap, like everyone's gonna see this like old guy walking in with sticks. And,
you're like Billy Madison,
something like that. Yeah, totally. And they're like they're like, no one's gonna care. So I take these lessons, and this guy is so patient with me, right? And I'm sitting there like, I know I take 2 lessons for what a kid can learn in half a lesson, just because I'm so old, and I take the motor skills aren't as like what they used to be, but it's honestly the best part of my week because I get so excited about going. And then I would practice on pillows, and when I would travel, I would take hotel pillows and practice with my drums, and it was so ridiculous, and I would film it and send it to my teacher, and he'd be like, oh, you're doing great, but I can't hear anything. And so at one point he's like you're gonna have to buy drums, and by the way, I still haven't told my family I'm doing drums. Like, I totally am sneaking out of the house like I have a second family, right? And so this is all in the hopes of pushing my comfort level and things like that. And so I sneak out, take lessons, come home, and I practice in my office up in the attic on pillows and things like that. And my teacher's like, you're at the point where you either got to buy drums or you got to find something else to do because you're not going to get any better. So I did it completely wrong. I went online on Facebook shops and eBay and all these places to find out like where I can buy a cheap set of drums, because I'm also very cheap. And I found this guy on Facebook Marketplace, and he's like 30 minutes from my house or something like that. And so I'm messaging him and back and forth. I was like, all right, I think I'll buy those drums. And I negotiated, and he's like, all right, I was like, can we meet in a parking lot somewhere, open space, right? Because I'm going by myself. And I'm like, I don't want to get trafficked or something like that, or like put in a saw position, like where I gotta I wake up,
cut your leg off,
cut my leg off, or his handcuffs, one or the other. And so he's like, well, I had an operation, and my knees are real bad, so I really don't get out much. I'm like, that's just what somebody from Saw would say. Yeah. So I go on his Facebook page, and I'm checking him out, and it's like, well, he looks legit, but there's not that many. I'm trying to decide if this guy's like a serial killer or something, and he's a stalker online. So all right, I'll do it. And I'm driving out there, and it's like a Tuesday in the middle of the day, like lunchtime. And I'm like, nobody knows I'm going out to get these drums. No one even knows I take drums. Like, this is like going to be the worst Law and Order SVU series ever. It's like a Dexter scene or something like that, right? And so I'm driving out, and I text the address to my brother, and I text the address to a friend of mine who was my client in California. And they both wrote back really obscene comments either this is the wrong address you use or wrong person you send it to, or you're having a rendezvous there that you don't want anybody to know. And I was like, if you don't hear from me in an hour, call the police with this address. So I go get the drums, and everything's safe, the guy's legit. And when we went to get the drums, I remember he's like, he totally didn't want me in his house either. It was like a total mutual, we don't want to hang out kind of thing.
Transactional.
And totally. It was like, he's like, all right, I'll take it. And I was asking him, trying to be nice and cordial, and because I was really interested. It's like, oh, what kind of drums do you have? And he stops, and he looks at me up and down, and he goes, you seem like a nice guy. Did you want to go to my basement and see my drums? And I'm like, Nope. I'm cool, man. I'm cool. And he goes, oh, good, because I really didn't want to take you down there. It was like we both thought we were going to kill each other.
Oh, my God.
And so I took the drums home, and I snuck them up into my attic, and I put them up there, and I kept it secret for, I think, maybe a week. It was right around the holidays. And my daughter goes up there at some point, and she's like, comes down crying. She's like, I told you I didn't want to play the drums. Now you're going to make me play. I was like, dude, they're mine. Just don't tell mommy. I don't want to. I was going to surprise everybody. And then my wife goes up there, and she comes up and yells at me, I told you not to get the drums for her. She doesn't want to play the drums. And like, I was like, okay, the jig's up. This is my drum set and all. So anyways, to go back, it's like put yourself out of the comfort zone, and put pressure on yourself by letting other people know that you're doing this.
Yep.
And if it takes, it's great. If it doesn't, then try something else.
Yep.
By the way, I have my recital on Wednesday. I am the oldest and tallest person ever being on stage. And I asked because I know one of the kids is one of the girls in the recital is a good friend of my daughter's, who is like a drumming savant. Like she's like unbelievable. And I'm like, just don't put me after her. Like, or anyone like her.
You want to open? Are you going to open for that?
No, they have like the little toddlers opening with like drum buckets, which I think I can handle. But I have one song I got to do, and I just got to get it down. And
what are you doing, Van Halen? What are we talking?
I'm doing some AC/DC. Yeah, I'm going hardcore.
Thunderstruck?
No, I'm not quite Thunderstruck. I'm more Back in Black.
Back in Black, okay. Yeah. Wednesday, you'll have to let us know how that goes. Or,
well, we'll film it. And
are we invited, or what's
if you want to come up and film live there, it's I don't think it's going to be that exciting, but it's just me on stage with a recording.
That's great, but again, that's great to push yourself outside your comfort zone. Yeah. And I took that. I'm taking acting lessons. I don't know if I told you that.
Cool. And,
but the same thing. It's like you get into this totally different like mindset. You get excited to do it.
It's a thrill, right?
Yeah, and it's just a different skill, and it triggers a different part in your brain. It's something I always wanted to do, and I can feel myself getting close. I'm improving, and it's just. But again, it's it's all about taking those steps.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to have an end game. You're not going to go to Hollywood, or maybe you will. You could.
What?
Why not?
What? That's
you go to Hartford Stage. Who cares?
Yeah.
But
right.
I am not going to play in a band. Like, in fact, if someone asked me to play in a band, I would tell them that you need to stop playing music if you think I'm good enough to be in your band. But the point is, I have a blast doing it. I love going up there and banging on them. If I could, the dream is to like walk into a bar and there's a set of drums and just like get up there and bang them and totally everyone's like, oh my god, I didn't know you could play the drums, and then walk off, like throw the sticks and you're done. But it's like there's no end game. It's more of just keeping myself creative, keeping myself interested in things and interesting maybe, and trying to just find new things to do.
Well, it goes back to your hobby and retirement, the whole retirement piece too, and the reason why I don't like to answer that question now is because we came across I think again the age could be a negative, if you think about it and ponder on it. So it's like the fact that there is such a thing as retirement in the golden years, and it's like, oh, that means I'm closer to death and whatever, but realistic, it's like, and again, it's like, well, that's when you stop, earning money, and you have to rely on the government to provide for you, and then you, mentally, I think you just start to get older if you don't have something that you've continually pursued or a hobby or just something that continues to drive you to keep you young,
So you never retire from a plan A. A plan A is something you just continue.
Yeah. Well, there's no reason to have one plan A, right? You can have multiple ones, right?
Well, look at all, you look at all the wealthy, the Warren Buffetts or even Trump, president, even before he became president. But it's like, that guy doesn't need to, people don't need to work, but there's obviously some passion or love for what they're doing to keep them going, and it probably keeps them alive, by,
totally.
So that's,
kind of wish someone wouldn't keep them alive. No,
but I think that's the thing. It's like, I don't want to rely on, okay, now I'm gonna sit back, I'm gonna collect, and I'm gonna just enjoy the sun of retirement. It's like I want to still be doing something, and whether it's some version of this or speaking or.
Well, it comes down to also, where do you find your joy, right? Is it something that you need external forces to tell you you're doing a good job, or that to give you praise and things like that, and that's fine, or is it something that, like, again, drums, I will tell you, I'm scared to death getting on that stage for that recital. But I haven't played in front of anybody, and I still love them, and it's kind of keeping me excited about it. So I think it's about like where do you find your joy, and where do you need your energy from? You know, is it extrovertedly or introvertedly that's going to get you kind of motivated? And it could be both. Yep. It's about sharing and getting people to find their passions and things like that. You know, I think that's where you really have to determine what's the important piece of it.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. Well, Lee, this is it's been a great time.
This is part one. I have so much more.
Oh, we got more? No, I was going to say, this is always a pleasure talking to you and just having you on the podcast. Thanks, and everything. Yeah, it's so great. And again, so raisingnerd.com.
Yep.
And
we'll be having a relaunch soon, and I brought you guys some of our swag.
Awesome. Love the logo. I mean, love the
size. So I got you a medium.
Sweet. Perfect. Yeah.
There you go, and get you a large because I didn't know your size.
That's perfect. Thank you.
But it's all about spreading that that idea that show off your love for being a nerd and helping others do the same. So as we relaunch all of our merchandise and everything we sell, a percentage will go to fund and sponsor other robotics teams and coding academies and things like that to get more kids into these areas of concentration and learn new skills. And as we've been talking all day, really trying to find opportunities to spread that idea that being a nerd is cool, it's fun, and you can find your passion doing it. So
awesome.
Yeah.
This is great, Lee. Can't thank you enough.
Thanks, guys.
Definitely check this out. raisingnerd.com. Lee, always a pleasure, man.
Rise, grind, and repeat, man.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.